Hi there, and I am Michael Buckoff from OTC, OnlineTOEFLCourse.com. I also have my blog at BetterTOEFLScores.com. And you have a question about two different types of speaking prompts for the TOEFL task number one, TOEFL speaking task number one, right? So in your email, you have this question. I need help in these super long questions. Get around school means within school. So you have a question on that. So let's look at the question. Imagine that your best friend has injured a leg in a sporting accident and cannot get around school easily. Yeah, that means within school. It means kind of moving from maybe one building to another or moving around within the same building. Anything that the person needs to do in order to get to his or her classes, right? So what kinds of things would you do to help your friend? Describe some things that you would do and explain why you think they would be useful. So that's one question. The next one is, how about the below question? Your university is organizing a series of guest lectures. Some people think that speakers with controversial opinions should not be invited to speak at the university. Others believe that the university should feature a variety of speakers regardless of their opinions. Which point of view do you agree with? Explain why. All right. So then the question is, how would you answer these? So what I'm going to do is, I think it's a good idea to go ahead and give you a model response. I'm going to show you a model response of how you could answer both of these questions. And then when we get done, let's take a look at one of the responses and talk about what makes it work and why it might score high. Okay? Let's take a look at the first speaking prompt here. So what do we have here? So describe some things. I came up with two. Campus escort services and then a scooter. That's it. So then, let me make a slight change. Let's see how, and I think I have so notice how we have the introduction here, which kind of outlines the two things. I talk about the campus escort service here. I talk about the scooter here, and then I have just a short conclusion. And that kind of comprises it. Question is, can I do it in 45 seconds? 3, 2, 1. Using the campus escort services and buying a scooter are two things that I have my friend do if he were injured and could not move around campus easily. First, my friend should contact the campus escort services, which would arrange a golf cart to transport my friend from one building to the next during each of his school days. Then student workers driving golf carts would come to where he was at any given time of the day. Second, my friend would need to purchase a scooter so that he could move within the building of each of his classrooms, placing his injured leg on the scooter and then using the other leg for mobility. My friend would easily be able to move within the buildings of his classes. Therefore, despite his mobility limitations, my friend would definitely be able to move around campus with minimal effort. All right, so not quite. I missed it by 4 seconds. And I need to change this to... But this is close enough. This gives you a general idea of how you could answer this question. Right? So in this case, looking at the speaking prompt, the key is to be pretty specific. Describe means be very telling. So I came up with the campus escort services, and then I came up with the scooter idea. And this last one is this is a tough one to figure out. And here's a model response I put together. It took me about 5 minutes to write it out, but let's see what it says here. So I went and looked at, why. I came up with one idea, and I put critical thinking abilities maybe. That's the only thing I could come up with. So I said, let's listen to it. Permitting controversial speakers will improve the critical thinking abilities of students. If students are exposed to controversial opinions, they will learn how to confront and refute counterarguments. For example, many students are progressive when it comes to immigration. Therefore, they believe that borders should be open. However, if the students listen to a speaker who espouses closed borders and even suggests that a wall should be built to block incoming migrants, these students will be confronted with opposing views. Then, they will need to develop arguments in response to these alternate views. If controversial speakers had not been allowed, these students would not have learned this valuable critical thinking, counter-arguing technique. So that one's about right around 45 seconds, so that would be a model response to that particular topic. The key here is I focus only around the critical thinking idea. And then when I got into my example, I focused only on the immigration issue. Notice how that's specific, right? Immigration specific, open borders versus closed borders, and then why listening to a speaker with a controversial opinion. The closed borders thing is a very controversial opinion in the United States, and there's a lot of universities, they will not allow these kinds of people to speak. Hold on a second. They won't allow them to speak because they have these opposing views, but I think the critical thinking abilities of students can be improved when they hear opposite views of their own. Then they have to defend their own arguments. But anyway, those are two model responses for those two types of questions. So if you look at both of them right now, right? If you take a look at this one, or the very first one, the key is in this one I had an introduction with two specific things, right? And I was very specific in my response, right? Campus escort services, I gave some description, and then we have the scooter, and I gave some description and benefit here, and then a very short conclusion, right? So I don't know if you noticed this also, one other thing here. I talked about this more in a hypothetical thing. That's why I said should and then would. I said would need so that he could move. My friend would easily be able to. My friend would. So I talked about this one more in the what we call present impossible type condition, and I use past tense verbs to convey that type of implied reality. Now in the next one, I actually chose to use more of a future or a present possible type situation. And that's why I said will improve, are exposed, will learn, are progressive, they believe. And it wasn't until the very end we have a student, if they listen, who espouses, suggests. At the very end, I did say I used the past perfect tense to talk about a past impossible situation. And this, so I said, had not been allowed. So one thing that you want to remember is with the TOEFL nowadays, you have to really make sure you have your verb tenses all straight. So you need to make a decision quickly. Do you want to talk about a present impossible situation, in which case past tense verbs are going to work better? Now, do you want to talk about more of a present possible situation? That means maybe future and simple present tense verbs are going to work. So be really cautious, be very careful on your verb tense choice. That's going to make all the difference in how you score, because you don't want any reason for the TOEFL IBT human raters to score you lower, because if you got a lot of verb tense issues going on there, you're not going to get 26 on the speaking section. You're not going to score high on speaking task number 1, for example. All right? And thank you for your question.